Welcome in, everybody. Ready for a deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at Pantheon AI.
Pantheon AI.
Yeah, it's, well, think of it as your information co-pilot for, like, all things finance.
Interesting.
So we're going to be analyzing this simulated PAI morning briefing.
Okay.
Stated February 4th, 2025. And
1925. So the future.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a glimpse into the future.
Yeah.
You know, imagine starting your day with, like, AI delivering your personalized financial news.
That would be pretty amazing. No more sifting through a million different sources trying to figure out what's actually important.
Exactly. And that's kind of the point here, you know, to see how AI, like Pantheon AI, could change the game.
I'm all ears. So what kind of insights does this briefing from the future have in store for us?
It covers everything from market trends to, global events and even some specific company highlights.
This is comprehensive.
Right. And it's all tailored specifically for, the listener.
I like the sound of that. Personalized financial news.
Exactly. So why don't we jump right in?
Let's do it.
This briefing starts by painting a picture of February 4th, 2025, what the markets look like. First up, the S&P 500. It's up by like 0.5%.
Not bad.
Right. Closing at 6,029.
A healthy sign.
Yeah. The Dow Jones, well, it actually dipped slightly, down just under 0.1%, finishing at 44,465.
And what about the tech-heavy Nasdaq? I'm guessing it's soaring as usual.
You guessed it. Up almost a full percent, closing at 19,610.
No surprise there. Tech seems to be unstoppable these days.
And it's not just the big players either. The Russell 2000, the one that tracks smaller companies,
Yeah, I know the Russell 2000.
also gained almost 0.7%. Closed at 2,272.
So it seems like there's broad growth sentiment, even with some areas, like the Dow, showing a little caution.
Right. And I think that divergence, between the Dow and the Nasdaq, it kind of hints at a possible shift, away from those traditional industries and more towards that tech-driven growth.
That's a really interesting observation. It makes you wonder if that's a sign of things to come.
Definitely something to think about. Okay, now for the, for the crypto fans out there.
Uh-oh. What's the bad news?
Things are a bit shaky in 2025. Bitcoin is down over 2.7%.
Ouch.
Yeah. Hovering around like $98,669. And Ethereum took an even harder hit, dropping 4.6% to $2,750.
So not a great day for crypto, it seems. But hey, that's the nature of the beast, right? Volatility is part of the game.
Exactly. But remember, Pantheon AI doesn't just stop at, just throwing numbers at you. It also digs into what's actually driving these market movements.
Okay, so what's behind these ups and downs? What's the briefing saying?
Well, one of the key factors it points to is this renewed concern around inflation.
Inflation. Makes sense. That's been a hot topic lately.
And what's fueling those concerns in this 2025 scenario are the ongoing U.S. China trade tensions.
The trade wars, they just never seem to go away, do they?
Sadly, no. And to really underscore those concerns, the briefing points to the rising yields on those 10 and 30-year U.S. government debts.
Right, because that basically means it's getting more expensive for the government to borrow money, which can signal that investors are worried about inflation eroding their returns.
Exactly. And they're specifically linking it to China's latest move. They've announced, fresh tariffs on U.S. goods.
It's like a classic game of chess, isn't it? One move leads to another, and the whole board shifts. We see it time and time again. These geopolitical events, they have a direct impact on the financial markets. It creates uncertainty, which makes investors cautious. It can even influence central bank decisions on interest rates.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that in today's world, everything is connected.
Truly. So what else does this briefing from the future highlight? Anything specific?
Yeah, it jumps into some specific stories that are, making waves that day. One that stood out was Jim Cramer's analysis.
Okay, what does good old Jim Cramer have to say?
He's basically saying that Wall Street is bracing for volatility, especially in those sectors, that are heavily reliant on trade because of these new tariffs.
That makes sense. Tariffs can definitely disrupt supply chains and create uncertainty for businesses that depend on global trade. But it's also a reminder that while the overall market might be trending upwards, some sectors are going to be more vulnerable than others.
For sure. But hey, let's move on to something a little more positive. Remember SailPoint, that cybersecurity company?
Yeah, I remember SailPoint. What about them?
Well, in 2025, they're planning this massive IPO, aiming to raise $1 billion. hit an $11 billion market cap,
Wow, $1 billion IPO. That's huge. It really speaks to the growing importance of cybersecurity in our increasingly digital world.
doesn't it? And it also suggests that this sector might be somewhat insulated from, those broader economic worries.
I can see that. As our reliance on technology keeps growing, so too does the need to protect our data and systems. It's a sector with huge potential, regardless of what's happening with trade wars or inflation.
Okay, now for a company that always sparks debate, Palantir Technologies.
Oh, Palantir. The data analytics company with a bit of a controversial past. What have they been up to in 2025?
Well, according to this briefing, they've just posted some pretty impressive earnings, exceeded expectations.
Interesting. So they're still a force to be reckoned with, even in the future.
It seems so.
Yeah.
And this performance has actually led Morgan Stanley to, upgrade their rating on Palantir from sell to hold.
So they're not quite ready to jump on the Palantir bandwagon just yet, but they're at least acknowledging their success.
Right. But there's still some caution. Analysts are pointing to ongoing challenges, intense competition, questions about their long-term sustainability.
Right, because Palantir's business model is somewhat unique. They're heavily reliant on government contracts and partnerships, which can be unpredictable.
Exactly. So it's a mixed bag with Palantir. Definitely a company to keep an eye on. But here's where things get really interesting. Pantheon AI, it goes beyond just individual companies. It provides a sector-by-sector analysis.
That's where we can really start to see the power of AI. Synthesizing data from all these different sources to identify trends and opportunities that we might not see on our own. It's like having a superpowered research team working for you, behind the scenes, analyzing everything so you don't have to.
Exactly. So what did Pantheon AI uncover? Well, no surprise, technology is still a powerhouse in 2025.
Driven by, I'm guessing, the usual suspects, AI and cloud computing.
You got it. And the briefing, it suggests that those fields, they're kind of driven by those long-term, technological trends and that global demand.
Yeah.
Which makes them, less susceptible to those short-term economic fluctuations.
It's like they're operating in their own little economic ecosystem, constantly evolving and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. It's fascinating, really.
Now, the briefing doesn't just stick with those, usual suspects. It also dives into the energy sector, which is going through some pretty big changes.
Yeah, energy is definitely a sector to watch these days, especially with the growing focus on renewable energy sources.
Remember those green energy investments we talked about?
Of course. Is the briefing saying they're starting to pay off in 2025?
It looks like it. There's this clear shift towards renewables, driven by, government regulations, growing consumer demand, and advancements in the technology itself.
It's like a perfect storm for the green energy revolution. And it's not just good for the planet, it's creating huge opportunities for businesses and investors.
Exactly. And speaking of sectors undergoing change, let's not forget about finance.
Ah, yes, finance. With those rising interest rates and regulatory changes, it feels like the industry is on the brink of a major transformation.
And the briefing, it suggests that those institutions, they're having to adapt quickly, turning towards, digital banking and fintech innovations.
Well, we're already seeing that happening today, right? With
Yeah.
the rise of mobile banking, peer-to-peer payments, and online investment platforms. It's like the old ways of doing things just aren't cutting it anymore.
Exactly. But here's something I found particularly insightful. The briefing, it really emphasizes the interconnectedness of all these, seemingly separate sectors.
Because in reality, they're not separate at all, are they? What happens in tech influences energy, which impacts finance, and so on. It's this complex web of interconnected systems.
Right, like trying to understand the human body by only studying one organ. You need to see how all those parts work together. And speaking of the bigger picture, this briefing, it highlights those global implications of these trends as well.
Makes sense. In today's interconnected world, what happens in one country can have ripple effects across the globe. We can't ignore those global dynamics.
Exactly, like those U.S. China trade tensions we talked about. That's just one example of how interconnected, our world has become. What happens over there can impact economies and businesses and investors, worldwide. It's a reminder that staying informed about what's happening globally is more important than ever.
And that's where a tool like Pantheon AI could be really powerful. Imagine having access to a system that's constantly monitoring global events, analyzing their potential impact, and providing personalized insights. It's like having a team of global analysts working for you 24/7, making sure you don't miss a beat.
So what does all this mean for the future? Well, the briefing ends with a cautiously optimistic outlook.
Cautiously optimistic. That seems to be the general consensus these days.
Right. It cites the strength of those key sectors, like, technology, and the momentum behind, renewable energy.
Those are definitely bright spots.
But it also acknowledges those risks posed by inflation and those lingering U.S. China trade tensions.
Right, because those issues aren't going away overnight. They're going to continue to shape the global economic landscape for the foreseeable future. But what I find really fascinating about this briefing is that it doesn't just present the data, it actually tries to interpret it. It offers these potential future scenarios. It's like having your own personal oracle, guiding you through the complexities of the market and helping you prepare for what might lie ahead.
Now, before we, dive deeper into those potential scenarios, I want to get your take on all of this. What stands out to you so far?
Honestly, I'm blown away by the level of detail and analysis that Pantheon AI is able to provide. It's like having a crystal ball that can show you the future of the market, but it also raises a lot of questions, like how much should we rely on AI for financial insights?
And what about the ethical considerations? How do we ensure that AI is being used responsibly in finance? Those are questions we need to grapple with as this technology continues to evolve.
Absolutely. AI has the potential to revolutionize finance, but we need to be thoughtful about how we use it.
We'll be back in a moment to explore those questions and continue our journey into the world of Pantheon AI.
It's remarkable how this briefing manages to, connect those big picture trends with those specific company spotlights. It's not just about understanding, the market as a whole. It's also about identifying like the key players, the ones that are shaping, their respective sectors.
It's like having a bird's eye view of the entire, financial landscape, but with the ability to zoom in on, any detail that catches your eye. And speaking of zooming in, let's revisit some of those sectors that Pantheon AI highlighted. Remember, we're looking at, the world in 2025, so things might look a little different from today.
Right, and it's fascinating how some sectors that are already on the rise today, they seem poised to become even more dominant in this future scenario. Take technology, for example. It's still the star performer driven by those megatrends we discussed earlier, AI and cloud computing.
It almost feels like technology is becoming, the backbone of the global economy. It's not just about gadgets and software anymore. It's fundamentally changing how we live and work and interact with the world.
And the briefing suggests that these technological advancements might help certain sectors weather economic storms better than others. Think about it. When was the last time you went a day without using the internet or your smartphone? These technologies have become so deeply integrated into our lives that demand for them remains strong, even when other areas of the economy are struggling.
Makes sense. Now, let's shift our focus to energy, a sector that's undergoing some truly, dramatic changes. Remember those green energy investments we talked about earlier? It seems like in 2025, they're really starting to pay off.
The shift towards renewables is in full swing. Government regulations and consumer demand for, those sustainable solutions and advancements in the technologies themselves, they're all converging to create this powerful force for change.
It's exciting to see that this transition to clean energy isn't just about, doing what's right for the planet. It's also opening up a wealth of opportunities for businesses and investors. The briefing highlights the growth of solar and winds and electric vehicle technologies as, particularly promising areas.
And this aligns with what we're already seeing today. More and more companies are incorporating sustainability into their business models, and consumers are increasingly willing to pay a premium for environmentally friendly products and services. This suggests that the growth in these sectors is likely to continue even as the broader economic landscape shifts.
Now let's turn our attention to the financial sector. As we discussed earlier, rising interest rates and regulatory changes are, shaking things up. It's like the old rules of the game no longer apply.
The briefing suggests that banks and financial institutions are having to adapt quickly, embracing, digital banking trends and fintech innovations to stay ahead of the curve. It's a classic example of how disruption can force an entire industry to reinvent itself.
It's like we're witnessing the birth of a new era in finance. Think about the rise of mobile banking and peer-to-peer payments and online investment platforms. These innovations are already changing the way we manage our money. It's fascinating to imagine what new technologies and business models might emerge in the next few years.
And what's particularly interesting is that These sector-specific trends are not happening in isolation.
Hmm.
What happens in tech influences energy, which impacts finance, and so on. It's like this complex ecosystem where each sector plays a role in shaping the overall global economy.
Exactly. It's like trying to understand the human body by only studying one organ. You need to see how all the parts work together to get the full picture. And speaking of the bigger picture, this briefing emphasizes those global implications of these trends.
Remember those U.S. China trade tensions we talked about earlier? That's just one example of how interconnected, our world has become. What happens in one country can have ripple effects across continents, impacting economies and businesses and investors worldwide.
It's a stark reminder that we're all part of, this global village. And staying informed about what's happening around the world is more crucial than ever.
And that's where a tool like Pantheon AI could be incredibly valuable. Imagine having access to a system that monitors global events in real time and analyzes their potential impact on the markets, and provides you with personalized insights to help you navigate these complex waters.
It's like having a team of global analysts working for you around the clock, ensuring you never miss a beat.
But as impressive as AI is, it's important to remember that it's just a tool. The human element remains vital when making informed decisions.
It's like having a powerful telescope. It can help us see further and more clearly, but we still need to know where to point it and how to interpret what we see.
Ultimately, it's about striking the right balance between AI and human expertise. We can leverage AI's ability to process vast amounts of data and identify patterns, but we need to combine that with our own judgment and intuition and understanding of the nuances of the market.
So as we head into the final part of this briefing, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Are you starting to see the potential benefits of having an AI like Pantheon AI as your financial co-pilot?
And what are your concerns? Do you see any potential downsides to relying on AI for financial insights?
Let's take a moment to ponder those questions, and we'll be back shortly to wrap up our deep dive into Pantheon AI and explore what this technology might mean for the future of finance. We're back and ready to wrap up our exploration of Pantheon AI. This simulated briefing from 2025 has given us, a glimpse into a future where AI could become our trusted financial co-pilot. We've seen how it can, analyze market trends and surface those key insights and even offer those sector-specific outlooks.
It's clear that a tool like this, like Pantheon AI, could empower investors, of all levels, from seasoned professionals to those just starting out. Imagine having access to, this kind of personalized financial intelligence
Yes.
right at your fingertips. It could really revolutionize how we approach investing.
It's exciting and a little daunting at the same time, what did you say?
Definitely a bit of both.
But as we've discussed, throughout this deep dive,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that AI, it's not a replacement for, human judgment. It's a powerful tool, but it's only as good as the person wielding it.
That's a crucial point. The takeaway here is that AI can enhance our decision-making, not replace it. Pantheon AI can help us, sift through these massive amounts of data, identify patterns and, surface insights that we might otherwise miss. But it's up to us, to interpret those insights and make those informed choices based on our own goals and, our risk tolerance.
Exactly. We can't just hand over the reins to AI and expect it to, make all the right calls.
Yeah.
There's still a need for human intuition and experience and, that critical thinking. We need to be able to question the data and challenge those algorithms.
Yeah.
And ultimately make our own, informed decisions.
I think the real power comes from that synergy between AI and, human expertise. Imagine using a tool like Pantheon AI to get like a comprehensive overview of the market. Identify potential opportunities, assess risks. Then you can use your own knowledge and experience and judgment to fine-tune your investment strategy and make those decisions that align with your personal goals.
It's like having a brilliant, research assistant who can compile all the information you need, but ultimately you're the CEO, making that final call. This simulated briefing from Pantheon AI offers a fascinating look into, the future of finance. But it also raises some important questions that we all need to consider.
How do you envision the role of AI, evolving in this world of finance? Do you think it will become an indispensable tool for every investor, or will it remain, a niche technology used by just a select few?
And perhaps even more importantly, how can we ensure that we're using AI, responsibly and ethically in the financial sector? How do we balance those potential benefits with a need to, protect individual privacy and prevent bias in algorithms?
These are challenging questions, and there are no easy answers. But, by engaging in those thoughtful discussions and, exploring those different perspectives, we can navigate this evolving landscape with, greater clarity and purpose.
The future of finance, much like the future itself, is not something that just, happens to us. It's something we actively shape through our choices, our actions, and our willingness to, embrace new possibilities.
So stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged. The world of finance is constantly evolving, and with the help of AI, we can all become more, informed and empowered investors.
That wraps up our deep dive into Pantheon AI. Thanks for joining us as we explored this potential future, of financial intelligence.
Sure.
Until next time, happy investing.